I was one of 150 POWs sent to Osaka, Japan. The first 6 weeks on Osaka was the roughest I ever experienced in my life. I was always hungry, taken to work by different routes each day so more people could see the POWs. Some of the people who spoke English would yell out at us. Us Japanese do not allow ourselves to be taken prisoners. We were spit on, sometimes be trotted into dark, dank quarters beneath the stadium. In October 1942, the Osaka group was split in half, with one group going to another city. The other half was housed in a building built to house POWs. Our quarters consisted of 6 rooms. Each room housed 66 POWs. 3 shelves on each side with 11 to a shelf. I was between Albert Schwab, pharmacist mate 2nd class, and Albert Mosier, pharmacist mate 3rd class. I was PM, pharmacist mate 3rd class. We were in this position for 3 years. We were joined in this camp by POWs from the Philippines and other bases. I learned then that we were in for a long, long war. Schwab, Mosier, and I formed a pact. We would keep each other alive, at least attempt to. I had my own survival plan. I make myself as invisible as possible. 2, never ask Japanese for anything. Use our real honcho for that. 3, don't make friends with the enemy, but be polite to them. And 4, don't do anything to shame your country. If I survived, I wanted to survive with honor. 2 days off a month from forced labor. This included carrying 100-kilo bags, that's about 223 pounds, from the dock to train cars. I nearly died from a lung infection in 1944. Sulfanilamide cured the infection, but Schwab and Mosier kept me alive, forcing me to breathe. It hurt, really hurt. Every breath I took, there was nothing for the pain, but I could still hear their voice said, "Breathe, damn it, breathe." It hurt like hell to breathe, but I did, and slowly got better until I was more or less back to normal. June the 1st, 1945, hundreds of B-29, and there's one person in the crowd that was on those B-29. John was there. Our unmarked camp was burned to the ground. After being housed in temporary quarters for a few days, we were stuffed, I mean really stuffed, into train cars and transported to another city. I never learned the name of that city. This new camp was in horrible condition, losing 2 or 3 a week. I was thinking I would never survive another winter of the POW, and all of a sudden the war ended. When the war ended, we'd been out on work detail that morning, and all of a sudden all the Japanese would gather around the radio, and I could hear something about BDGQs, that's a B-29, and I didn't know what to happen, but it took us back to the camp. Our camp was vacated except for one Japanese sergeant who spoke English, and he'd been rather decent to us. I think the other was worried about reprisals, so they got out of there. But we were in a spot, we didn't know where we were. America didn't know where we were. I doubt the Japanese officials knew where we were. So we asked this sergeant to get us a radio. We got an English-speaking channel on the radio. On the radio, they said all the POW camps paint large PW signs, put them on top of your buildings. We did that, and about a week later, American planes spotted our camp. The pilot wrapped 4 packages of cigarettes in a handkerchief with a note saying, "Your position has been radioed back to headquarters, said in a couple of days you have all the food you can eat." And he dropped that to us. And he was right. In a couple of days, we did have all the food we could eat. We tore off parts of the building, built a fire. We kept this fire going for If it stayed there long enough, we'd burn the whole building down. And on September the 2nd, there was an Air Force colonel who was in charge of getting us back to the States. Seeing how many it was of us, he commandeered the car and driver, came to our camp. That's when we learned about the atom bomb. We didn't know about the atom bomb. He arranged for how many there were of us to get us back. And this sounds crazy, but our guard were Japanese military police. They were allowed to maintain arms, so they were responsible seeing we got back to Tokyo safely. So, but they did a good job. They did what they were supposed to do. On September the 6th, we started boarding the train. I don't know if you have ever heard the expression, the ugly American. Well, I saw an ugly American. As we was boarding the train, a reporter from Yank magazine threw out hardtack in the dirt and then took pictures of Japanese kids picking it up and eating it. Now, we had tried so hard to show what Americans were like. That's not what Americans were like. I wanted to say something to him, but I didn't. We got on the train that night. An airplane followed us all the way to Tokyo. Next morning, we got on the train, and they brought the message, "You need anything?" We formed a big no. When we got to Tokyo, the Japanese guards saluted American officers there. We were turned over to the Americans at that time. Those of us who were captured on Guam had been field damaged for 1,368 days. I hate to say that number because it hurts me every time I say it. On September the 8th, I was one of 26 POWs flown to Guam, overnight at Guam. At Guam, we were housed at the Officers Club. A lieutenant commander came around, took our orders, brought our food to us. We got up before daybreak, headed, the next stop was Guajalina. We stopped there for refueling. But before the plane even stopped there, they announced on the plane that the ship service was open. There was free beer for everybody. I don't drink beer myself, but everybody else filled up. From there, we were flown to Pearl Harbor. We stayed at Pearl Harbor overnight. We got 3 months back pay at Pearl Harbor. Then we were flown to the Naval Air Station in Oakland, California. That's a 14-hour flight on a Navy C-54 that traveled at 180 miles an hour. I went on my first liberty stateside since early January 1941. This was the 12th of September 1945. I just got back from my first liberty there. Was in bed, got sound asleep. Somebody grabbed my foot, was shaking it. I raised up. It was Dr. Van Pena. He was a surgeon I worked for when I was on Guam. I must have been instrument nurse for over 100 of his operations. We had a very good relationship. I studied his habits, and he didn't want an instrument slapped in his head. He wasn't laid there. And he was looking to see how many of his crew was still alive. He said, I looked on the nurse's desk, I saw your name, and he came over. Now you say, do you still want to work for me? And I hate to say it, but I said no. I said, I was in kind of a rut. In the operating room, especially as an operating room technician, eventually you see everything over and over. I want to get in the lab field. He said, I can understand that, but he said, if you ever decide you want to, he said, as soon as I'm assigned, he said, I'll send for you. And from there, Oakland Naval Air Station, we were flown to Old Lacey, Kansas, changed planes to Lacey, Kansas, then flown to Norman, Oklahoma. Believe it or not, Norman, Oklahoma has a naval hospital. And while I was at the Norman, Oklahoma hospital getting checked out, my mother and older sister came to visit me. And after the visit, my mother wrote a letter I didn't know existed until May of this year when I was visiting my oldest sister's kids. Oldest sister, at that time she was 98, she had died, and they were going over her papers, and here was this letter. And I'm going to have my daughter, Beverly, read portions of that letter. Now this is written by my mother in September in 1945. At that time, she had 6 boys in the armed forces. When I read this letter, I cried. I didn't write that her letter. Never read it now.
Okay, this was September 22nd, 1945. Dearest Corinne and Harriet, those were her 2 daughters in Oregon. Yesterday was the most wonderful day of my life, with no exceptions. We walked in on Peter B. at hospital here. He is not in bed, is only staying until his papers come through. You know all records were lost and they have so much to fix up. He looks grand. Is brown as a berry and hard as nails. His face and hands show the hardship he has been through. Face is tired looking and hands so calloused, but that is all in the past now. He has been checked and rechecked and is okay. As soon as we got word he was here, we, Edith and I, came. We inquired at the hospital and his ward is 27. We found it and commenced walking down it. It is a long, long room with cots and bunks on each side and boys just lounging around. We were getting more and more excited and peering at every bed. One boy said, "Can I help you?" We told him we were looking for Peter B. Marshall. He let out a yell, "Marshall, you're wanted here." Peter B. was at the far end on a little porch. He came, and was there ever 2 happier people? He flew from Tokyo to Guam, from Guam to Oakland, and from there to Norman, Oklahoma. They let him stay with us all day yesterday, and he could have stayed with us all night, but he went back to the hospital and will be with us again today. If his papers come, he will go home with us. He has a 90-day leave. Then his time will be up anyway. But of course, he will have to be discharged, have to report back somewhere. I am the happiest person that ever lived and can never get through thanking God for sparing my boys. Poor mothers who will never get their boys back. Lots of love, Mama.
As all you POWs know, somehow you never get rid of the memory of being a POW. I had tuberculosis from being a POW and was hospitalized from 1947 to 1948, and again 1953 to 1954. I am still bothered with some PTS problems some 69 years later. I want to say something about the hospital I was in. My first day in the hospital, they didn't have drugs for TB. If you was a real bad case, they did what they call a rib job. They'd take out a portion of ribs from the side and collapse that portion of lung so it could heal up. But you'd see people walking around with one shoulder lower than the other. They even started stuffing open you up stuffing ping pong balls, stir up ping pong balls
Oh.
in that area where your lesions were. That didn't work out well. But and they finally had medicines. When I went to the hospital the second time, I was so down. The riding the bus from Phoenix to the hospital in Tucson, I was thinking about house payments, car payments, furniture payments. I went to all those places. They were real nice, but I don't know when I'll be back on the feet again. And they started out with education of PASS and I and H. Daily, even taking my mouth. PASS was such a nasty medicine. I kept a piece of lemon around. I'd bite into the lemon before I throw that down. Then the streptomycin injections twice a week. And I was kind of getting used to it. But Dr. Carr, one of the great surgeons, I think, in the VA, called me into his office. He said, Pete, he said, I think I can help you. He said, I've been looking over your chart. You're young yet, you're healthy except for the TB. But he said, I want you on my ward for 6 weeks before surgery. And he put me on a high caloric diet. I had small steak every night for dinner. But when he operated, I was so scared. But I knew I had to go through with it because I had no life otherwise. And so they finally got to the phase, when you're scared, your veins tend to collapse. And the doctor had a hard time getting the needle in my vein. He finally got in there and he said, I started 99 and started counting backwards. I got to about 92 and I felt myself slipping away. And so I tried to show off. I said, well, Yasumita sorry. I want this good night, goodbye in Japanese. Well, the anesthesiologist that gave me this injection, the Japanese was his second language. So I didn't. But I was out for 5 hours. My poor wife was sitting in there, is he ever going to come out of the operating room? And I woke up, they were still sewing me up. But I haven't had a sign of TB or anything since that time. And Dr. Carr, the surgeon, he gave me a new life.